One of the main reasons I deconstructed from Christianity and walked away from the church after being a deacon and chairman of the deacon board and a youth minister was the whole idea of sin. The idea of being born into sin, the idea of being born sinful, the idea that I am a wretch, that I will never be good enough, that there's nothing I could ever do other than to believe in Jesus and follow the commandments and laws, that I could ever obtain this glory of heaven, was that I had to believe in this Jesus, but that me and in myself, the creation that God made, that if this God is perfect and this God made me and everything that he said he made on earth and in the universe was good, how is it that I am the only thing, humans, that is not good, that does not stay in this God's perfection, did not stay good? Like we were set up from the beginning. And so this idea of sin caused me to dig deeper into the Bible without the predetermined ideas of doctrines that had already been taught, that the teachings from early church fathers and their doctrine that had lasted for centuries, that I eliminated all those from thought and just studied it and studied it. Studied it, as Christians would say, in prayer and in meditation for decades, until I realized that this God and this book is a lie. And the idea of sin is a lie. And I'm going to take you through a few observations, and I want to hear what your comments and your thoughts are. And thank you for subscribing and supporting the channel. Now, when you look at the doctrines of the writings of this book without a predetermined doctrine, and you see that in the very first parts of Genesis, this is where we get our sin from. That it says that God had made everything and everything was good. Had made man and it was good. Placed Adam and Eve in the garden and it was good. Placed the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden, and that also is good. But then that the serpent came and deceived man. But did he truly deceive man? You see, when you read it without the predetermined landing spot, you recognize that it is the God, Yahweh, who lied and said that in the day that you will eat it, that you will die. And in the day that they ate, they did not die. It is the serpent who said that this God lied to you, and that if you eat it, he's afraid that you will become like one of us, knowing the difference between good and evil. And then when this God expelled Adam and Eve from the garden, he said that they have to go because now they are become like us, knowing the difference between good and evil. It is the Yahweh character who lies. It is El who lies. That means that since El lied, or even if you said Satan lied, evil was already part of the world. It is just that man did not have the knowledge of good and evil according to this story. So if Adam slapped Eve, he wouldn't know if he was doing good or he was doing evil. If Eve kicked Adam in the ping-ping, he wouldn't know if he was doing good or doing evil. That is the whole concept of that. There's nothing more to it. But then upon them eating, sin came into the world, according to this book, although sin was already in the world because somebody told a lie from the very beginning. But sin was already in the world, or basically sin came into man. And from that time frame forward, anytime a woman becomes pregnant and when she has the baby, she is deemed to be unclean. If you study Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, you'll see that when a woman has the baby, because of the blood, she is now unclean. And her and the baby are unclean for 8 days. Anyone who participated in the birth are now unclean for 8 days. The room in itself is unclean for 8 days. This is why in the Mary Joseph story, Jesus story, that they couldn't find a room in the inn. It is because they was at Joseph's family house and they were there for a census, and there was no room in the house, which is an inn. A family house is the inn, the main family house, that she could have by herself for 8 days. And so she had to go into a place that was already deemed to be unclean. In the manger, the lower part of the house where the smaller animals are kept. But for 8 days, she remained unclean until on that 8th day, they traveled to Jerusalem, paid their penance, had baby Jesus circumcised, so that they can then be deemed Mary and baby Jesus clean and then return back to Nazareth. But when you look at the birthing of a child is deemed unclean, therefore born into sin. But not only that, when you look at Genesis at the end of the Noah story, when Noah finally gets off the boats, he makes his big grand sacrifice to this God. And then this God comes and says, I will never cleanse the earth in that same way. I will never drown out the earth. Because every thought, and this is the part that I've never heard preached before in any church. If you've ever heard this preached in a church, let me know in the comments. But at the end of his speech and the rainbow and all that, this God says that every thought of man from birth is evil. Every thought from man from birth is evil. So the Bible perpetuates the fact and the idea that from the moment that you are born, your thoughts are evil. And I had a difficult time dealing with that, because what you are telling me is that when my daughter Sydney Simone and my son Lincoln were born, that when they were infants and when they were lying there and they just wanted some food and they just wanted love, or they were playing, and that this little infant was having evil thoughts. When they were 1, 2 years old, not understanding possessions, that this toy doesn't belong to them, that they can't have this or can't have that simply because it exists, that their thoughts were evil. That when kids could be in the most dire situations, there are kids in Palestine right now, and I've been in, matter of fact, let me not even use Palestine. When dealing with the situation in Rwanda back in the 90s, even in all that war-torn situation, I saw kids in refugee camps playing. Kids always find time to play. Kids will find happiness before they find evil. They are always looking for happiness before they find evil. Yet, every thought from man, since from birth, is evil. Just studying people and watching people, you will come to realize that that is a false statement, that is a lie in itself. And so the more and more I studied this, and then I started looking at the writings of Nag Hammadi and started researching other religions and other ancient religions and cultures and whatnot, and I come to realize that at some point, every civilization almost did not understand why things happened that they thought were bad. Why were certain people murdering certain people? Why did certain people steal? Why did the volcano erupt and massacre all the people? Or why did the crops not come in? Why was there a drought? Why is this army attacking us? Why are we attacking them? They had to figure out where this negative energy was coming from. And so they created some type of sin in man, because they couldn't explain why man, the only animal on the planet, goes against the natural unity of the planet. Why is it that man is the only one? We have to have a reason. So man must be filled with sin. Man must be guilty of sin. Man is the problem. And to a certain extent, man is the problem. Because we can't learn as a whole to live with our shadow self, to understand our shadow self, and then gain control over our shadow self. Simply because you have the thought of slapping tar shit out somebody doesn't mean you have to do it. And in Christianity, if you had the thought, then you've already did it. If you hated someone, you've already committed murder. You lusted after a woman, you already committed adultery. That's bullshit. No matter how great we become on this existence, we will never control every thought that we have. It is whether or not you act on a thing that makes the difference in the world. I recognize the beauty of women all the time. That does not mean I lust for them. That does not mean I will have sex with them. It does not mean that I'm going to cheat with them. This doesn't mean I'm a cheater. It just means I'm a man who recognizes the beauty of a woman. So there is no sin. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable.